Hey, Mike, what do Kelly Slater and PT have in common?
I don't know. They're both world champs?
Nope, they both own Endless Summer box set.
Oh my God, rad. You guys, you can get it too. The link's in the show notes.
Racks on a slipper, slippery. Big guns like Mark Fu. Trap jumping like a kangaroo.
Hey everybody, welcome to the QuiverCast, where we chat with surfers from all around the world, from all walks of life, and we get their story. Find us at www.thequivercast.com. I am Mike, your host. Let's get into the show. Good morning, everybody. This is Mike here with the QuiverCast, and I got a super special guest from Florida, Mr. Gabe Kling. How are you doing, Gabe?
I'm great, Mike. Stoked to be here. Just hanging out in Florida.
In
Wishing I was
Florida.
in California with you a little bit. You know, we were just talking about the waves you guys have been having, and we've had a good December, but it sounds like you're, winning as usual as far as waves go out there.
Yeah, but you guys have warmer water, right?
I'm in North Florida, so we're in a full suit.
Are you?
I'm trying to get my boys to surf, so I was just pretty much yesterday struggling to put them in booties, and anybody who's tried to put booties on a kid knows how hard that was. But
It's hard enough to put them in a wetsuit, really.
no, exactly. But we got warm weather most of the year, so
What's the water temp?
it's like 62 right now.
Okay, so it's the same as us almost.
Yeah.
What's the coldest it gets?
It's gotten down, I mean, I'd say like 49 once or twice.
Wow.
Like it gets cold.
That's cold.
Then the next week it's warm again.
Yeah. And then how many hours drive south do you have to go to get that warm Florida water? Not far.
You don't have to go that far.
Right.
I mean, it warms up in 2 hours. Like you could be in Melbourne and it's substantially warmer. And then 4 hours you're in South Florida and it's, those guys are all in, full suits, but you could probably get away with the trunks and a top or spring suit.
So you're in St. Augustine, right?
Yeah, I'm in St. Augustine.
That's not far from Jacksonville, right?
No, we're like 45 minutes from Jacksonville.
So is that your football team, the Jaguars?
Yeah. I'm still recovering from the last 2 Saturdays. It's been a wild ride. I've got season tickets, so I went to both the games, and
Oh, cool.
yeah, it's been unbelievable. After, historically, maybe they'll make it playoffs once in a decade, and then they'll turn back into a pumpkin. But hopefully that's not the case this time.
You think they're going to go all the way? You hoping? Hoping.
Obviously hoping. I think it's been pretty unexpected to come this far, and it's been a lot of fun. And I think at this point, with the quarterback like Trevor, you never know. Yeah, okay. They came back from 27-0 last week, and
that was a crazy game, right?
Yeah, I mean, there was no way that was ever going to happen, and then 45 minutes later, we're all
with like 3 seconds left on the game.
But yeah, I mean, I think with that, you never know. They could do it.
You never know.
I'm gonna kind of watch it from the house, though. I'm pretty beat up from staying up late 2 Saturdays in a row.
Dude, I bet. I totally bet. So you were a professional surfer. We'll just kind of jump that way. And athletes, they all kind of relate, but they're totally different sports. Like your individual sport being a surfer. Can you relate to how those guys are feeling?
That's a team sport, and it is. It's totally. I feel like with surfing and a few of the other individual sports, you're on an island.
Yeah.
I feel like having the team there. I enjoy watching that. I can't relate as much as to some other sports. I think it's really cool just seeing like them rally around each other, and and then watching like magic happen when they all are on the same page and they're all backing each other. And I think that's really cool. And with any team sport, it's like that's like the dream. You guys
Yeah.
all come together and you win it all, and it's not like, hey, I won, it's we won.
Right.
I think the competitive spirit is probably the one, no matter what, any of these sports, you can relate to that.
Yeah.
But team sports are different, but it's exciting. I'm excited to cheer them on, and hopefully feel like I'm part of it.
Right. In any of your heats or any contest in your past, were you ever way behind in a heat and somehow, just like they did last game, catch a couple good waves?
Yeah,
and turn that heat?
For sure. I mean, there's been, I feel like surfing is like similar to with that game. It was like momentum shifted.
Yes.
And back, and I've had quite a few heats where you sit and you're sitting there, and it feels like nothing's going your way, and then that one good one comes your way, and you get a good score, and like on the way back out you catch another one, and all of a sudden you were comboed, and now you're winning. So I mean that can happen. I mean, I feel like I know I've had a few heats where it's happened that way. Watching, I feel like Slater is the like king of that, especially at somewhere like Pipe. It's like we've seen it so many times. Him turn a heat in the last 5 minutes, and I think I can think of a few heats that it's happened for me. But that kind of, when you say that, I feel like Slater immediately comes to mind.
That's the guy you're thinking of.
King of creating momentum for himself.
That's interesting. I mean, yeah, you hear. I mean, we've all seen the heats with him, and he's had so many heats. What about you? Is there one guy or one person that you wanted to beat? Do you have a rival, I guess, is the question?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was, I guess, like going a bit farther back, growing up on the East Coast, I was always like, I was, surfing against, I had like a good crew that I surfed against here in St. Augustine, like, Jeremy Creeder and Jody Davis, and we all pushed each other. But then we'd go to regionals, and I would always come up against the Hopgoods.
Yes.
And they were, a year older than me. I think, they wouldn't call it a rivalry.
Yeah.
Our record is, they've got a pretty great record against me, but it was always, I felt like that was so big for me, and pushing my surfing is like, they were, we were kind of talking about it earlier, but like the next stars coming from the East Coast, and they were like unbeatable, and they were just, they kind of basically tore everybody up. But then they would move up a division.
Yeah, so you had a year off.
Yeah, no. Then all of a sudden, I could win.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I would get like Minihune regional champion, and then I'd move up the boys, and I would lose, and then they'd move up, and I'd get a trophy there. And when they finally like went basically pro straight out of ESA at 17 or 18, I got like a couple years of junior pro, and then tried to kind of follow them up. It took me a lot longer to get to the CT than it did them, but I ended up traveling with them quite a bit too, and I'd say semi rivals but great friends, and surfed against them a ton, and they probably, I didn't really, I think I got Damien in Puerto Rico, but really I can count on like one hand probably. I just have beat them. I'd say growing up, they were like a huge influence in that way, like comparing and pushing myself to be on that level with them. I mean, I've had quite a few people like that I sort of feel like you travel with them, you're cheering them on, at the same time you're like, you always end up in a heat at some point with whoever you're traveling with.
Yes.
So that rivalry, and with how, small the field is, it ends up being kind of a funny one because, then you come back and staying in the same hotel room with them and, have to cheer on the guy who just beat you or vice versa.
Or vice versa, yeah.
Or sometimes, you're like, I'm out of here.
Yeah. Well,
Good luck.
Actually, let me ask you about the Hobgoods. And were they traveling together as brothers? Because you always hear this, little bit of scuffling between the two sometimes.
I mean, there was definitely some trips where they were traveling together, and I've never laughed so hard in my life. Like,
I bet
they would just like, pester and like, I mean, they like are like the best of friends and know each other so well that it was like just constant button pushing. And I mean, if you've hung out with them for like 10 minutes, they're the same no matter what. Funny. They're especially, they're both so opposite but so similar. It's it's really fun. I loved traveling with Damo and CJ as well. They're like, they both like, I mean, they're just like so positive and know everybody, and like, you're gonna have a great time hanging out with those guys, both of them. I do keep up with CJ. He's in Florida too still, so try to connect with him as much as possible, and definitely miss hanging with Damo. They were definitely like, those were the best trips. I traveled with CJ and Damo and like, Brett Simpson quite a bit too, and Lopez is a bit, Corey and them. Those were the best trips. Really, it was crazy.
I bet you guys had so much fun.
Yeah, man, those guys are hilarious.
Right on. So let's start in the very beginning. How did you get into surfing? How did it all start?
Well, growing up here in St. Augustine, I lived over on Villano, and we lived right on the beach in this little tiny beach house, and I did homeschool. And my brother's like 8 years older. Him and all his friends surfed. So I was pretty much tagging along with them and surfing the waves at the time. Like, I mean, sounds kind of like, I'm sure everybody says it, but the sandbars were a little better back then, I think. So we had like a good little shore break behind the house, and, at high tide or low tide, we were like going somewhere and surfing every day. And I was kind of tagging along with him and his friends. But there was a great group of surfers here in St. Augustine. There still is. But it was, it was a tight knit group, and really, my brother kind of got me into it. And then, I had a good friend, Jody, who lived like 7 houses down, and we'd meet up and surf every day, and kind of went from there. I definitely credit a lot to my brother Lance, and then Tori here at the surf station. He sponsored us pretty young and would pick me up and take me to contests and
cool,
support me and kind of got me first boards, and still am sponsored, and have a lifelong relationship with Tori, and I mean, he's the best. Owe a lot to him. He's got the shop's still here, and it's like the East Coast warehouse for Channel Islands, and I mean, it's like the surfboard heaven, really. They've got over a couple thousand boards in there all the time. So
that's rad.
Yeah, that's right up the road. So I mean, that's kind of, now I just take my kids in there and hope they don't break any, but we're in there quite a bit.
Are you riding for anybody like surfboards, or are you just picking them off the racks?
I still ride a lot of Channel Islands.
Yeah. Okay.
Kind of riding mostly those. It's funny, my Quiver's changed a lot, being that I'm here in Florida most of the time.
Okay.
So I've got a lot of little short, kind of, not like, I still do like love ordering shortboards.
Yeah.
But they don't get ridden nearly as much.
As much as you want to ride them.
Yeah. No, we've been going on a few trips here and there still, so still get to ride normal boards, but I have a rack of a couple bigger boards that are pretty much up there, just dry docked.
Okay. So you're hanging out with your brother who's 8 years. So that's a big difference, especially when you're grown. Were you going out and like getting pushed by them? Like maybe when you were real young and the waves were bigger and you're like, I don't want to go out and they're making you.
Yeah. I mean, our, East Coast, you have these, big northeasters that come in and, it's real drifty. And I just, I remember quite a few times, I mean, pretty much every time like they went out, I wanted to go out. And my brother was kind enough to let me tag along, but then if I couldn't make it out and we're drifting, we would like get dropped off, 4 miles up the road. Then they would, it would ruin their session. So they would typically like, I remember Miles like holding on to his leash, having him drag me out, and or any one of them, somebody would have to help me get out so that I could at least sit out the back and drift with everybody. They were definitely pushing me, and I think that just kind of tagging along, obviously, like exposure to some waves that were at the time pretty big for me. So
yeah, of course.
That helped a lot. I do clearly remember Hurricane Hugo. I think I was 8 or 9.
Mm-hmm.
And there was, epic conditions here. And I remember it being like, 20 foot and offshore.
Wow.
But in reality, it was definitely not that. But I mean, that's how, in my mind at the time. And, my brother and all them were out, and my parents let me paddle out. Somehow I got out, and I like look over, and my brother's like, no. Great. So then, then he, had to make sure I was making it back in all right. And I remember getting a wave or two and just like, being in awe of like, I mean, it was big.
Yeah.
I think, looking back at photos, it was a good sized swell for sure.
I bet.
Probably, 10-foot faces or something. But, to me, I was,
just
wide eyed, and, it all like, I got a couple waves and I was paddling back out and got held down, and remember like thinking it like just swimming up, and like, at the time you just keep swimming up. You don't really let it kind of do its thing and then swim up. So I just like almost feeling like I was going to drown, and coming up, and one of his friends was right there, and he was like, I was about to pull you up by your leash or something, and I was like, I'm going in. And then I like turned around and went to the inside and got held down again, very similar.
Yeah.
And came up the beach and told my mom like, oh yeah, it was fun, but I almost drowned twice. And, they kind of retell that story of almost drowning twice, and my version's different than theirs. But yeah, it was like, surfing with them, kind of having that older brother and sort of pushing you and looking out for you. It was a big part of it for sure.
Was your mom familiar with the ocean? Like, or did she just like didn't know the ocean and she let you paddle out, not realizing how dangerous it was?
They were, very familiar with it. My mom always loved to go and like swim, and she would just swim way out, but neither my mom or my dad surfed.
Okay.
My dad, started when at some point in his 40s and just, messed around, but never like got into it. And my brother was, really into it. And that was kind of the influence that got me there too. But they were, they were familiar with it. They were supportive. They were always there. They were driving me around, but they weren't like, they didn't surf themselves.
Did your brother compete or not?
Yeah, he did. He did. He, at an amateur level, and there used to be, a few pros, pro contest here.
Okay.
He made it, he did, he surfed against Slater once and tied him on one of the sheets. And it was really,
that's rad.
Yeah. Back like, I don't even know when, Alec Maitland at Middles. It was like a pro they used to have here when you used to be able to ride the beach in the state park. But I do remember going down and watching that contest, and ASP East. We used to drive down to New Smyrna and watch. I think it was like there was one year it was Tom Carroll, and
Wow.
so there was two. I forget who the final was, but they were basically surfing like boat wakes in New Smyrna, and this was like the highest level. You know,
Yeah.
it was pretty crazy, but we went down there and watched it. We'd travel a bit, and I do remember those days, and I really liked that those first couple trips, like with chasing storms up the coast and going to Outer Banks, and
Yeah.
a lot of these little, like, it's so nostalgic for me to go to Outer Banks because we used to always go there for Eastern Championships, and
Yes.
always get barrels up there, and
Yeah.
we're not used to that in Florida. It's not too often that you get waves like that. So
at what level did you realize I want to compete? This is fun.
I kind of, I guess, sort of fallen in, and my brother was always like, I want to be a pro. And
Okay.
I kind of was just like, yeah, I want to be a pro. But I truly do, like, from a young age, I remember knowing that's what I was going to do.
Really? Okay.
I'm going to be a pro surfer. And then I remember my dad telling me, you got to have a plan B. And I was like, well, there isn't. There's no plan. They were like, well, you better do good in school. I'm like, okay, I'll do good in school.
Okay.
I did, I pretty much, and I mean, at the time, like, I mean, what else, when somebody tells you what's your plan B? What are you going to, like, as a teenager, or even those young ages, like, you're not really, I mean, I ask my kids what they want to be, and they tell me 5 things, and they're all different each time. But like, I think, for me, it was, I was going to be a pro. I knew I was going to be a pro. I was going to, I dedicated all my time and everything to it. It was pretty much my, like, singular focus, and it paid off. I got to travel the world, and, it's pretty incredible that it did. I think, I guess, it's hard to say, but to tell somebody they have to have a plan B it's kind of easier said than done.
Yeah. And you did make it. So was that path easy for you, or was it hard?
It was exciting. It was awesome.
Exciting.
And I enjoyed it. I enjoyed every bit of it.
Yeah.
I think back, and I'm like, yeah, I should have done this or that, or change, like, earlier in my career, I should have maybe, been a little more serious about it, or this or that. 'Cause, I mean, it took me a while to actually make it and get on the CT, and, it was like, it happened the way it did, and it was a great experience. But, like, you can always break it down and say, what if I did that, or what if I did this? But, like, from the start, I mean, I got to travel. I got to go to, I was sponsored by Rip Curl and got to go on, like, a couple search trips. I got to, go to Indo and go on, like, insane boat trips and hang out with all the Australians and do, like, that whole leg over there. And, like, each sort of phase, I'd kind of, like, think of them as sort of a couple different phases. But, like, I wasn't really doing the WQS at the time when I was on Rip Curl from, like, 18 to in almost my mid 20s. I started doing them more in the mid 20s and really trying to qualify then. But, like, all that time traveling and seeing the world and all the friends that came from that, that was exciting and awesome, really. I mean, there's obviously, like, at some point, you, like, for me, I mean, watching, at the time, I think the Hobgoods were already on, they were definitely on tour, and they're killing it. So it would have been fun to jump straight into that. But I definitely, the path I took was awesome.
So you took this path. What did Rip Curl come to you and say, we don't care about contests, go on trips, or how'd that work?
It wasn't so much like we don't, because Rip Curl really is pretty contest based.
Yeah.
Most of the riders are CT, or, they're historically have been that, but they did, they had these really cool trips, and no, I was stoked to get on a few of them. They definitely wanted me to do contests too, so I was
Okay.
doing that as well. Results were pretty sporadic, and
Yeah.
I think a lot of that was kind of where my head was at the time. I was just like enjoying traveling and surfing
Surfing.
and everything that goes with it.
Yeah.
Maybe could have been a little more serious about it and trained harder, but I was just like excited to be a professional surfer and out of Florida and in these really cool places.
Making mags and everything else too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got a few shots and mags, and I
Yeah,
mean,
that was rad.
that was you know that was the goal back then. I mean, it's changed a lot. We
A
don't
lot.
really have mags anymore, but that was like, you know, you had to. It was you had to shoot with the right guys, and
Mhm.
and then the funny thing was, like, you shoot with somebody and you never see the photos, or maybe you're like open the mag and you're like, whoa, I got a shot in the mag.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it was cool. I enjoyed it. I loved. So basically, like from high school, I graduated and I just drove out to California. And, at the time, right out of high school, I bought this like Ford Escort.
Yeah, rad.
All of Florida was burning. It was like smoky and
Oh, okay.
waves were flat, and it was like 90 degrees. And
Humid.
I was like, I'm done. I'm out of here.
Okay.
And drove to California and kind of just like slept on couches and lived out there with Bomar. He's with O'Neill now, but he was like, there was a little older crew that actually was like renting a place, and I'd stay there, and then I'd go on a trip, and hopefully they'd let me stay there
Let's go
again,
back. Yeah.
or else. I was kind of just floating around and kind of trying to not wear out my welcome, but like
Mhm.
basically sort of lived in California between different places, renting rooms here and there, or just like crashing for 5 years out of high school,
Yeah.
and just lived out of a bag and floated, but surfed a ton, and that was like it was. I mean, in hindsight, like I mean, I really wouldn't change much because it was a great experience, but
Yeah.
that was kind of what I just envisioned. I just want to get out of Florida, and
Yeah. So you
and
did.
I did. I made it happen. I didn't really make any. It was, we were basically eating burritos every day and trying to spend as little as I could and surf
Yeah.
as much as.
So then when did you take the seriousness and put it towards surfing contest? Did you have a talk to yourself or something?
No, I mean, so I felt like I would have moments where I would like do well in contests. Like I did well. I won a few when I was 19 or 18. I feel like just kind of like being a little more clear headed, not going out as much,
Okay.
and really focusing. Like I think that was around when I was like 25,
Okay.
and then kind of like I do remember being in Portugal surfing a contest and like long right point, and just like end of a heat, like my legs were like cooked, and I was like, I need to get in shape. So
Okay.
so like I kind of remember, started training a little bit and just being more aware of what what my goal is and how to get there, and that was probably my mid-20s.
Okay. So after high school, it was just surf. It wasn't training, wasn't anything. And then you just kind of turned that around to train, basically, and put your head
Yeah.
down. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, no, I mean, mid-20s, I started like definitely taking everything more seriously, and the results like followed pretty quickly. Yeah.
Was your goal to make the CT?
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of like, again, it was like sort of like when you say, what do you want to do? I want to be a pro surfer.
Yeah.
That was basically, being a pro surfer was making the CT.
Oh, gotcha.
So like kind of, I mean, at the time there was other ways to actually be a pro, but
Yeah.
that was always the goal. I didn't really like think about the how-to part
Okay.
and put my head to it, I think, for a little while. But yeah, I do. I mean, around 25, I started riding for Maddox,
Yeah.
and that was like all of this was around the same time. And I remember, being in Australia and surfing Margaret River,
Mm-hmm.
that QS over there, and I ended up finishing third.
Yeah, that's
And
awesome.
being like Taj, I had like the waves were terrible, but I like had this heat that was kind of like superstar heat that I won and got through. And that was sort of a aha moment for me. I'm like, oh well, now I'm 13th on the QS. I could maybe
Yeah.
make a run at it. The funny thing is, I remember I got home and I was staying with Bomar at his house, and he worked for O'Neill, and he was like, I got a bet with Garth Tarlow that
Mm-hmm.
he was like, you won't be in the top 50 at the end, Garth said. So I was like, wait, so Bo bet on me to make the top 50, and I ended up, I think, making the top 50. I didn't qualify,
Okay.
but
Yeah.
he may have won a couple bucks, and that was a big stepping stone for me. And I ended up, the next year qualifying. I think it was the next year.
What did it feel like to qualify? Like, how did you feel? Besides stoked, I get that part.
Yeah. It was definitely like, so I think it might have been 2 years following that, actually, because I had a year where I was pretty close, and then the year where I was like in until Hawaii, and then I was bumped out.
Mm.
And so then it was, qualify before Hawaii so that you don't have to,
Worry about it.
And then it was, that following year, or that year, I was pretty high up, and then came into Hawaii and got in by the skin of my teeth. So I would say relieved is a
Relieved. Yeah.
big part of it. Excited and relieved, but it was it was a process, and it was a lot of those were pretty long years of slogging it out on the QS.
I bet. Yeah.
I remember adding it up at one point, and it was like 21 contests I did.
Wow.
And we would go to Brazil like 3 times a year.
3 separate times.
Like 3 separate times.
Wow.
It was the tour was kind of like at a point where it was like, yeah, if you want to run it, go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't like say, hey, let's do all, you'd have like 2 at the beginning of the year in Brazil, and go to, Europe and Australia and, US, and then Brazil. And then, like depending on where there was a lot of contests. So it kind of, in a way it was really cool. Like we have so many like kids trying to do contests and not enough contests now. So like it was a total opposite then.
Yes.
You had like choices. You could go to Brazil for the 6-star, or you could go to Pipe for the 3-star.
Yeah.
And they at the same time. And it was like, there was a lot of choices, and you kind of like mapped out your year and, just went for it. But they were long years for sure.
So a 6-star versus a 3-star, were you deciding on the wave? Did that dictate where you're going to head, or was it the amount of stars, what the points were worth?
I would say the majority of it was kind of the points and, getting on the CT.
Okay.
And then as I sort of got to where I was, planning a little bit more of like, hey, like, for Pipe, that was always a kind of a toss up, because it was like, miss out on points at a 6-star, Fernando de Noronha, or go to Pipe and get experience in like a 1 or a 2-star.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was going to Brazil for the first few years, and then finally, like, really, in hindsight, it would have been great to get a few more waves at Pipe, going out, kind of get that comfort level going. But it was kind of, mostly based around trying to get the numbers,
making the points.
Yeah.
Chasing the points, not the waves.
Yeah. Yeah. Which puts you in some kind of crappy waves a lot of times.
Yeah, right. So now at this point you go to the CT, right? Are you doing QS and CT at the same time that year?
Yeah, I was doing both.
That's
And
rough. I'm
that was
assuming.
that was crazy because I mean I would go on to like a beach break and then go into a slabby
Mm-hmm.
barreling wave at Chile the next week, and then Australia, and it was just like coordinating and getting boards for each place, and they were all so different. It was definitely like kind of, I mean, juggling and trying to figure out how, like, all right, I'm in town for 24 hours. I gotta get have a whole new quiver ready, and
Well,
hopefully
that
it
too,
works.
yeah.
Then get there and try them all out, and the contest starts in a couple days. So it was definitely doing that many contests, like, again, you can always go hindsight, but
Yeah.
like, I think being a little more laser focused on the big ones would have probably been a good call. But at the same time, like, I was kind of just running with it and trying to stay
Focused.
stay on the CT, but also like stay, where I wanted to be. And I guess that was just kind of on the road in a way.
Yeah. How were the first few events of the CT? Were you like super excited to surf against the big names, or were you intimidated, or like what was your
Yeah,
take?
I mean, say both for
Okay.
sure. The first CT at Snapper Rocks, I was like so excited to surf the wave
Yeah.
that I definitely just priority was out the window. I was like catching way too many. I got
That's
I
funny.
had Tom Whitaker man on man, and he like just got like the one wave of the day. Like he sat behind the rock, and I was just I couldn't do it. I couldn't sit and wait and sit and wait. And we were both behind the rock, and I finally bailed and tried to go and get one, and then the set came right there, and he got like a huge score, and then I ended up having like a good heat, but that big score was, I mean, that was a lesson in priority right there. That's like CT versus QS.
Yeah.
But also just like the Florida in me was like, I gotta get a wave.
Oh, that's funny.
I just kind of, I don't know. I think you kind of see it with a lot of almost like even the Brazilians too now. It's like they're sort of manufacture scores and they don't sit.
Mm-hmm.
And they do so much under priority, and then obviously as you gain experience you learn to use priority when you have it.
Yeah.
But they're not like, I felt like at that time and in that era it was a little bit more like, drop anchor and stay behind the rock. Like there was so many heats that people would like sit behind the rock and there'd be waves swinging wide and unridden.
Yeah.
And that was like, I just couldn't really get myself to do that. But
You couldn't wrap your head around it. Letting good waves go by.
especially like two guys out at Snapper Rocks.
Right.
And, first time there, I'm just like, I just wanted to, anything. I did paddle all the way back out at least. I didn't turn around and a good one way out. But no, I remember that. I remember, I had a friend traveling with me and just kind of being in the contest area and, rubbing elbows with Slater and the Hopgoods. And I mean, the cast that was there, that was, I believe, the year that maybe Wardo made the final.
Oh, okay.
It was, Mick Fanning and Parco and just really like, I mean, all my favorites, still my favorite surfers.
Yeah.
But it was just like, really, like you said, it was amazing to kind of be there. I was soaking that up, but trying to soak that up and do well. I definitely, I had a lot of heats against top seeds, and
that's the rough part, being the lower seed.
That first year I came in with a decent seed, and then I had a few years on and off. but most of the 1 year I qualified at, I got on with like the number 3 seed and was like actually going to have a good seed for the year. I ended up hurting my ankle.
Yeah.
And so I never got to really, get a start with a good seed. I had when I did get back, I had a lot of, fun, memorable experiences surfing against Slater and Parko and Owen Wright and all the top seeds.
Yeah. Actually, let me ask you a question about that. You got injured. How long did you have to sit on the sidelines, and how did it feel sitting on the sidelines?
Yeah, it sucked. I like kind of twisted my ankle and had a high ankle sprain in Tasmania.
Mm.
And I flew back to California and got MRIs, and they're like, oh, it's a high ankle sprain, and it just didn't heal. I would be able to walk. I would start training again, and I would be like, all right, I'm gonna go surf, and just the pushing off of it, just the motion of surfing. It was my back ankle kept, it was like a knife stabbing in my ankle. It was like a really sharp pain, and it like, I tried pretty much everything.
Yeah.
And it got a little better, and I thought I was going to be good. And then I surfed for a little bit, and it just came right back. And I ended up having surgery, and they took out, there was a couple bone spurs or chips of bone that had fallen off, and they just were like nicking the nerve there. So like once those were out, unfortunately that was like 9 months later.
Yeah.
But once those were out, I was like within a month felt like, myself again. But it was definitely tough. I was back in Florida and kind of watching
right.
and wishing I was there, obviously, but
and you should have been, by the way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Knowing that sucks. That's the suck, I'm guessing.
Yeah, but it was interesting, and it was being here. I ended up kind of I ran a little Grom contest, and I was like, because I was in the water on a soft top playing around and hanging with the little dudes around here, and that was like one positive from it. I ended up running a Grom contest for like 6 years, and we had a few years off, but I'm running it again now.
Yeah, what's the name of that? It's like Gabe.
Yeah, just Gabe's Grom Comp.
Yeah, it's cool
with that one. But yeah, cool. It's been a lot of fun. It's free, and we do it every year and have great support for it. And it's just mostly, the kids who haven't done a contest, it's just free. So parents are show up and push them in. And it's been like, we did it this year, and it was over 100 kids.
Wow, cool.
And like 30 something were like under 8.
Oh, wow.
And definitely chaos and all in the best way possible. But totally. And it's in the middle of the summer, so the waves have been very approachable, we'll say. So.
And you got a couple kids, right? How old are they?
I've got 3 boys. They're 10, 7, and 4.
Okay. So you're seeing these, you said 8-year-olds this year or whatever, getting pushed in, right? Are these some of your friends that you grew up surfing with and their kids? Or is it these, like, who's showing up at the contest? New surfers?
There's a bit of everything. Okay. I have quite a few, a few of my friends that we grew up surfing together have kids around the same age. So, we're all trying to get them together because they don't want to surf with me. They want to surf with their friends. So
of course,
trying to peer pressure as best we can. So those guys are all at the contest. There's a good, group of, young kids here in St. Augustine that all surf together. But there was kids from Flagler Beach and Jacksonville, and good turnout all around. I think,
right.
Free contest and good prizes helps a lot, but it was really cool to see. There's couple good surfers showed up, and then just a lot of people's first experiences with contests. So
did you start this why did you start it? I guess the question.
I was just kind of like, well, that was when I was hurt.
Right. So yeah. That's what I mean.
Part of that was just trying to, I was a little bit like, obviously a little jaded because I was hurt and I wasn't on the CT, and and I was just like trying to do something and be in the water. And was pretty excited to see all the Grom surfing and their little froth,
Mhm.
and all that. So that sort of sparked it. I was like, well, I have a bit of time on my hands, so let's run a free contest. And I had great sponsors, Maddox, Body Glove, like TVS, all these sponsors that were like super on board. And so, I mean, the gift packs were insane those first few years.
Yeah, lucky kids.
Everybody was flush with,
Yeah.
surf industry was killing it then too. So it was like insane prize packs. And we just like, I had, Jackson DeVille, the mascot, came down a couple years, and
Oh,
like,
cool.
yes, we had some really funny stuff go down at those, but it was awesome. I mean, that was really just kind of, I guess I was semi bored and also like just excited to hang
Get
out.
back.
Hang out with the Groms.
Yeah, cool. One more question about your contest. There being so many Groms surfing your contest, over 100 or whatever, were there that many kids when you were surfing at that age?
No, I don't think so.
No.
No.
Okay.
No, there was a lot of good surfers, and maybe not so much here. I mean, I felt like it's definitely, obviously it's gotten a lot more popular, a
Yeah.
lot more people too, but
Okay.
it's no, definitely not 100 when I was a Grom, but I feel like there was like such a tight knit group of surfers back then, and it's gotten so much more popular. It's a little bit more of like everybody's got a surfboard, and maybe they go surfing here and there, and there's still a pretty tight knit group of core young surfers here.
Okay.
That core is probably pretty similar to what it was back in the day.
Back to the CT. So all those years on the CT after your injury, how was that? Was it fun or did it become a job?
So after my injury, I didn't get that wild card to get back on.
Yeah.
And I was pretty bummed about that, but I was back on the QS, and then that was the year that Nate Yeomans and Tanner Gadalskis and those guys all qualified.
Mm-hmm.
And then they decided like, hey, we're going to have a mid-year cut this year.
Yeah.
It was like everybody was up in arms because, those guys had, slogged it out on the QS forever,
mm-hmm.
and finally got on. And then it was like they got 4 or 5 contests. But so I won lowers that year, and I ended up getting, the back half, the wild card off onto the back half of the CT. And it was kind of, for me, that was probably my best run. Didn't really get the results I wanted, but I had like a very, I just had like kind of my approach changed, and I was just really had nothing to lose and was just trying to like showcase my best surfing. And I was obviously like still as a wild card, you come in as the low seed. So I was going against Slater and those same guys again. But I had, some good heats, and I always like thought of it as a job, but I never really like didn't like my job. I was pretty pumped on it.
Yeah.
And all it took in most cases is to sort of pull up the surf report at home and see that it's still like, waist high and dribbly, and
mm-hmm.
and I'm in Portugal, and waves are good, and it's offshore, and it's overhead, and I'll go kind of wipe off a loss and surf down the beach.
Well, you had a long career in pro surfing. At what point did you say, yeah, I'm done?
I mean,
and was that hard?
I feel like, well, I mean, I know exactly what point I did that, like chronologically, like I was like 31 or 32. Well, then I'd say like there was a lot of things that went into that, like sponsors, making money. A lot of that sort of dried up for me at that age after Maddox went out of business and DVS went out of business.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of other companies did too, or they were tightening up. So there really wasn't that, that support that you need to go back on tour. And, once I fell off, that was like I did do the QS again, I think another 2 years or a year. And I was, there, I was close. I could have probably kept doing it. But at the same time, I was kind of like, it wasn't, I wasn't making money. I was losing money. I also, I had my first kid around then, and that was a pretty big, change in everything, mindset and life, and great motivation. So like it's funny, I ended up, we had Case and our youngest, and I ended up going on like a great run, and mostly East Coast contests, but I won a few contests and kind of like made some pretty good money. I was like excited, but it was like, then the travel was just, it felt different, where I was stoked to be away.
Yeah.
Stoked to, not be in Florida. Now it was like, well, definitely missing
Family's there,
missing moments and missing family. And pretty much right around then, it was like all signs were pointing to like, hey, time to move to the next chapter. And then that kind of circles back to like, yeah, plan B. And I'm like, I have no idea what that is. Yeah, that was a hard like transition. I think anybody who was a professional athlete who loved what they did or what they do and got paid for it, there's not another job that you could, be like, oh, well, that, I'll just do that. That sounds fun. Like, no jobs sound fun after surfing for a living,
Yeah. Traveling the world.
Yeah. I mean, it took me a few years to kind of figure out, and I'm now a realtor and sell real estate here in St. Augustine. But that transition to where I'm now was, had like 4 or 5 different things I tried out, running surf camps for a while, doing a few other odds and end jobs, and kind of trying to figure it out. That's the fun part, I guess. In hindsight, it wasn't that fun at the time. I was kind of I was a little depressed for like a year, but thankfully my wife and family were like supporting me and giving me a kick in the butt. And it was, I think, like I said, I mean, any transition from like something you love that it's basically your all consuming, that's your life, to something else is going to be hard. Definitely was a transition.
Coming off the tour, now back in Florida, trying to figure out what you're going to do in your life. Were you still surfing a lot, or did that kind of wane off a little bit, or how did that go?
Yeah, I mean, I was definitely still surfing a lot. That's one constant for me.
That's cool.
I still do. I still, kind of plan my day around the tides. I think that's the one thing that's kind of kept me from, kept me grounded and good mindset. For, I guess, one positive is for living in Florida is like, I can keep a job and surf as much as possible, because the waves aren't all that great all the time. And when they're good, I can kind of plan it. Yeah. If I were somewhere else and I was surfing all the time, probably that work-life balance wouldn't work as well. But
and real estate, I'm sure in Florida, is blowing up.
It is. Yeah, it's been a crazy couple of years.
Yeah.
My wife helps me out a lot. She does our marketing. I've just been between 3 kids and real estate, and then trying to surf here and there. I've just been running, but it's been great. Market's been hot, a lot of growth, and in the best way possible. I think, St. Augustine is unique, and it's a really great place to live. That's kind of why I ended up back here. Cost of living isn't as crazy. We got, a cool downtown scene. Like it's, the oldest city in America, the oldest continually.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. Yeah, actually.
It's there's a couple oldest cities in America, but I guess, oldest continually inhabited European settlement in the U.S. And there's a big
Wow.
fort downtown. A lot of cool, like kind of has a Europe vibe. And then, the beaches haven't changed all that much. It's just like kind of small town feel, but it's grown a ton, and they've done a good job of preserving what was appealing about it. And
Yeah.
it still has that vibe here. So I love living here, and it's pretty easy to sell something you feel passionate about. So
You've been all over the world. Did it happen organically to move back to Florida, or did you feel like, I mean, your roots were there? Like, why did you come back to Florida and not stay in California like some of the Floridians or somewhere else in the world?
I at one point, in my mid-20s, I ended up kind of basing myself back here. I bought a house. So I was here for the latter half of my travels. So I was kind of already set up here.
Established.
Yeah. Just that, and I family here and everything else. I ended up here for mostly for those reasons, but it was, I do miss California. I would love to live out there. I just, we're like 2 blocks from the beach. I can walk to the beach.
Oh, that's rad. Awesome.
And I can afford to live here.
Yeah. Cool.
I don't know. I would love to be out there. It's just pretty pricey. And, that even back then it was, but like that and just the traffic and everything else. It started to wear on me a little bit. I love it though.
You probably have it way better.
Yeah. I love it out there. I do miss, I haven't been out in probably like 7 years, but I do want to, I was just, talking about that this week. I want to do a trip and kind of go cruise up the coast and bring the family and go hang out.
Show them around a little bit. Surf lowers.
Try to, be one of those dads on the shoulder pushing their kids on.
I think there's 1,000 of them out there.
I know. Maybe I'll just go surf. What's that? Cottons or something further down.
Uppers or something.
Yeah. Yeah, but I'm excited to come back out there. It looks like you guys have had a great run of waves, and I'm always kind of imagining just booking the ticket and going, but I haven't done it yet. So soon I'll do it.
Right on. And then one last thing, Gabe, what do you think of pro surfing today and how it's changed, and they're doing the cut again and the Challenger series, like the 3-tier as opposed to the 2-tier when you were on it?
I was pretty skeptical, and it's grown on me.
Has it?
I guess initially I just automatically kind of like felt a certain way about, that mid-year cut because we had been through it, and about like narrowing the field, and like, kind of felt more so for those competitors who are trying to position themselves. But as a spectator, I think, what they're doing is really cool. They've sort of brought a bit more attention to that Challenger series. And,
I like the Challenger series.
And
personally.
and that's become like, that's a pretty prestigious, just being on that tour, and it's an accomplishment in itself. Yeah. But with the CT, I do feel like there's a few things there's a few things I love about it, a few things that I'm kind of like, they could change, and I think it would be a better product. If they're going to do a wave pool contest every year, I think it should be at a different pool. There's enough
wave pool,
enough pools around that like maybe they have it at that plunger one in Oz one year, or
dude, that thing's so fun.
Or Waco, or something else. I feel like that's almost its own sport in a way. Slater's wave looks incredible. I would love to surf it. It's just, from a spectator standpoint, it's gotten a little redundant. We've seen the runs already.
Yes.
We've seen winning runs, and there's kind of not a section for them to really like do anything. Well, who knows? Somebody might prove me wrong, but like, I would love to, just see like at least a big section at the end where they can add something a little different and progressive. But like, we've seen amazing surfing there, but it is like on its second or third year, so it's kind of getting a little redundant. And then, I'm back and forth on the finals day.
Yeah, the finals day, that's the big thing.
That's like, I feel like it's really exciting. I feel like it's like it's worked out the way it should 2 years in a
Okay.
row now. I felt like, Medina having that year he had, like, had he not won at lowers, like, I mean, that would have been a disaster.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
then Philippe ripped all year and went in with the lead, and you kind of, just knowing him and knowing lowers, you sort of knew if he was even in that top two, I think I would have put my money on him. So
Yeah.
I mean, I do feel like, he came in with the lead, and he won the title, and both those, like, there's not any controversy, but I feel like it does invite a bit of that
Well,
controversy. I think, Steph,
yeah,
it
Steph,
was
that's the one
really,
this year.
I loved it. It was like, made for TV moment,
Yeah.
coming from, fifth seed and winning the whole thing, and literally saying, like, I hated this format, but now I kind of like it because I'm the world
Yeah.
champ.
I mean,
Um,
world champ again.
yeah, anybody in that top five is obviously deserving. It's just like,
Of course.
I guess I just kind of circle back to, like, the what if Medina basically won the tour halfway through because he just had, like, a historic,
Run, yeah.
run, and then you don't get the title at the end of the year. That's kind of like, I guess that would totally, like, I mean, that would be like one of those moments that Medina's on a podcast in 20 years talking about it, still mad about
Yeah.
it.
I see that point, but what about, in football, the Jaguars could win every game and lose the Super Bowl.
Totally. Well,
You know what I mean? So
that's exactly where they came from with that.
yeah.
And I get it, and it's exciting.
Yeah.
It's like, you're going to tune in. That's what
Of course.
you're not going to miss finals day.
No. Do you think finals day should stay at lowers the whole time, or should they move that around?
I mean, I love lowers. I think it's great. It's great for, like, progression. I think
Yeah. You won there.
I think there's going to be like a positive to anywhere they have and a negative to anywhere they have it. Like, if you have
There
it
you go.
at Tahiti, that is gonna, your world champ is gonna be reflected based
Mhm.
on the wave that it's at. And I guess, like, lowers is probably the most even playing field as far as that goes.
Mhm.
It is like the most rippable and perfect wave, and everybody, technically every type of surfing is welcome there in a way. I do feel like, coming into top five, it's like you kind of know there's definitely, I mean, I don't know. There's, like, I was hoping that Griffin would have been in the top five because I felt like he had a shot at it, but it's like that above the lip. They're scoring that so high that I do feel like those guys coming into lowers have, like, a distinct
Advantage.
but that would be the same with a different group of guys if it was at Tahiti.
Yeah.
I'd like to see him move it around.
Yeah.
I think, again, it's kind of like year two or three, same with the wave pools. It's like, we want to see something a little different. There's a lot of good about it, but I do feel like, kind of mixing it up could be good for it.
And I'm going to put you on the spot. Your fellow Floridian, do you think Kelly has any shot at getting one more world champ?
I'd love to see it.
I would love to see it too.
I feel like,
under the current format, I guess is the question.
that I think that's kind of one of those things is, like, at Trestles, it's, if they move it to Tahiti, 100% pipe for sure. Trestles, I would love to see it.
Yeah.
It's just, you got to be above the lip, and he has that, but
Yeah.
not quite at the level that these guys do now, and
Yeah.
that's to be expected. The dude's been doing it a while.
Long time. Yeah.
But it's funny because I love Kelly, and I felt like when he won his last title, I was like, oh, he's gonna retire, and he did.
Yeah.
And waiting on him to win that next one, and it's been a while now. Maybe he'll do it. If not, like,
Yeah.
he's done so much for our sport since then. And, I think about like if he would have just walked off, and there's been so many big changes that he's been behind since then. So, and that pipe win,
that was huge.
That was insane. And you know how it is with anybody who's super dominant, like similar to us watching the finals at lowers every year. It's like, we want to see something different. And he was so dominant for so long that like, we all kind of were like, all right, time for a changing of the guard.
Yeah.
And it didn't happen. He beat like 10 generations and now he's like,
amazing,
still doing it at this crazy high level. And I think, we're all kind of rooting on him, to keep it going and win a couple more. But at some point, like, love to see him like just hit that walk-off homer and retire on top. I don't know how that happens, but that'd be cool. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah. And one final question. I think you were in a contest just recently, like a local contest, huh?
I've done a couple of the local board riders comps, and
okay.
I did a Tommy Tant is a memorial contest in Flagler.
That's the one. Yeah. I saw the video on your Instagram.
I did that. I'm good friends with Will Tant, and Tommy, passed away years ago, but they've done that every year. And it's just a really cool local event. And I haven't done it very often, but I did it this year, and my kids did it, and I made some heats. I made it to the semis and got to surf against like Robbie, Rasta Rob, and
oh, cool.
A lot of these young guys, and level was really high.
Right on.
And it was fun.
How'd it feel? Put the jersey back on.
I enjoyed it. I was. I've been like, old man back is starting to set in. So like, I have my days where I feel like I can surf still, and then days that I don't. It's funny to like have to put it. I was not laughing about it, but I'm like, it's like a full-time job being able to maintain my body so I can do all the fun stuff I want to do. And with everything, I just want to always be able to do that kind of stuff. So
cool.
It was fun. I enjoyed it. And at the end of the day, like I made it to the semis, and I thought I maybe should have made it farther. That's great. I was like really stoked to like, let's just, it wasn't like a big money purse, and it was really like just more so for fun. We stayed in this little cabin on the beach with my whole family, and terrible bed. And I came home and I was like, all right, gotta ice myself, like go figure out what kind of yoga or what I gotta do to be able to go surf again this week. So
right on, Gabe. Thank you so much for coming on the QuiverCast. We all appreciate it. I'm super stoked.
Dude, thank you, Mike. I'm stoked to be here, and I'll looking forward to tuning in next week and see who you got.
Oh yeah, thank you. All right, everybody. This is Mike and Gabe Kling, and we are out of here. All right, thanks. Later, Gabe. Thanks.
Thank you.
100 foot out joke food. 100 racks on a surf dude. Slippery, big guns like Mark Food. Trap jumping like a kangaroo. 100 foot out joke food. 100 racks on a surf dude. Slippery, big guns like Mark Food. Trap jumping like a kangaroo. You know we don't fuck with no kooks. You boo on my didgeridoo. They calling me dude. I'm stacking the loot. I'm ripping your chick in the coop. She grabbing a hold of my leggy. They jelly, they Gucci my weddy. The friends of Giuseppe, the chain is so heavy. She think that I'm charging the Eddie. 100 foot out choke poo. 100 racks on a surf dude. Slippery, big guns like Mark Food. Trap jumping like a kangaroo. 100 foot out choke poo. 100 racks on a surf dude. Slippery, big guns like Mark Food. Trap jumping like a kangaroo. Surf trap, I'm stacking that money. Four shots, a red Ferrari. He started calling me Dundee. Diamonds a surfing McFlurry. She want me to teach her to surf. Splash. I'm pulling up, ripping the verse. I'm leaving these kooks in the hearse. They get moved 100 foot on their head, they get work. 100 foot out choke poo. 100 racks on a surf dude. Slippery, big guns like Mark Food. Trap jumping like a kangaroo. 100 foot out choke poo. 100 racks on a surf dude. Slippery, big guns like Mark Food. Trap jumping like a kangaroo. You know we don't don't fuck with no kooks. You know we don't fuck with no kooks. You calling me dude, I'm stacking the loot. I'm ripping your chick in the coop. You know we don't fuck with no kooks. You know we don't fuck with no kooks. They calling me dude, I'm stacking the loot. I'm ripping your chick in the coop.
Hey, you guys, Endless Summer box set. This thing is legit. It's authentic, numbered certificate in it. It has a 5-frame film strip from the original print. You will literally own a piece of history. It has a specially minted bronze medallion. Dude, that thing's sick. Okay, there's so much more here. Go to the show notes. There's a link on there. Go check this piece of history out. This thing's rad. Seriously. Smithsonian American History Museum has it. It took 4 years of research with 3.5 in production, all hand assembled. This thing's rad. So much to this awesome box set. Remastered DVD, sharper images than the original film, but dude, this thing's so sick. Link in the show notes.